No one really spoke about what happened on Merrill Creek Road that August. The county sealed a report. The sheriff retired early. And the boy, well, he doesn't talk much anymore. But some folks say if you pass by the old Turner house late at night, you might see a German shepherd sitting by the porch, his ears alert, eyes fixed on the woods. The dog they almost killed. The one that rich woman tried to silence. The same one her son later called his guardian angel, with a voice so raw it hushed the entire courtroom. Don't let that thing near my son. The rain had turned the gravel driveway into a slick gray ribbon, curled beneath the sprawling Turner estate like a snake in hibernation. Sheriff Clay Donahue pulled up in his muddy cruiser, engine ticking like an old watch, wipers dragging across the windshield like tired sighs. Beside him in the passenger seat, K9 Barlow shifted, his broad chest rising with a low whine, nose pressed against the glass. The call had come in half an hour ago. Domestic disturbance. Screaming. Possible child endangerment. Rich address. That last part always came with complications. Clay's gut told him today would be one of those days. He opened the cruiser door. The rain slapped cold against his face as he rounded the hood. Barlow leapt out, tail low, ears swiveling toward the mansion ahead. White stone, black trim, windows like watching eyes. A butler answered the door before Clay even knocked. Thin man, trim mustache, face pale as milk. She's waiting in the sunroom, sir, he said. Mrs. Ashcroft. I'd suggest you leash the dog. Clay said nothing. He didn't leash Barlow. The dog knew the rules, knew the risks, and more than that, Clay trusted him. Inside, the air was warm, stale with roses and furniture polish. Expensive quiet. They followed the marble hall to the sunroom. Glass walls, wicker furniture, the scent of lemon balm and fresh rain. A woman stood by the window, tall, immaculately dressed in a cream blouse and pearls. Alexandra Ashcroft, 47, recently widowed, wealthier than God, and just as untouchable in these parts. She turned. You brought a dog? Her voice was brittle ice. He's my partner. Well, keep it away from my son. She didn't wait for a response. Follow me. They passed through a hallway into a guest room, where a boy sat curled on the edge of a bed, maybe 9, wet blonde hair, bruised lip, holding a threadbare stuffed elephant like a lifeline. The boy looked up. His eyes flicked past Clay, landed on Barlow. His lips parted. He didn't scream, didn't speak, but the elephant dropped from his arms. He slid off the bed and walked straight to the dog. Barlow stayed perfectly still, head low. The boy buried his face in the shepherd's neck, silent, trembling. Then he whispered something Clay couldn't hear. Mrs. Ashcroft went white. Get him away from that animal. The boy flinched. Clay held up a hand. Ma'am, he seems comfortable. That thing is dangerous, she snapped. I want it removed from this house immediately. Do your job. Barlow didn't move. His eyes locked on Clay, waiting, always waiting. But Clay saw it then, mud on the boy's bare feet, scratches on his arms. No signs of forced entry. No broken windows. Just one trembling kid and a mother who looked more angry than scared. Ma'am, Clay said, voice low, did your son say what happened before you called? She stiffened. He was screaming. I was afraid someone had broken in. Did he say someone hurt him? A pause. No. Barlow shifted slightly. His nose pointed to the floorboards under the bed. Clay watched him, then crouched. There, beneath the bed frame, deep scratches. Parallel. Fresh. Clay leaned closer. Red fabric caught on the wooden edge. Torn flannel. And blood. The boy whimpered. Barlow gently nudged him. Clay stood slowly. Mrs. Ashcroft, I'm going to need to ask you some questions at the station. She drew herself up. Are you accusing me of something? I'm doing my job. Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You bring a filthy mutt into my home, and now you think you know my family? Barlow let out a low growl. The boy didn't flinch. He just clung tighter. Clay radioed for backup. The official report was filed as undetermined incident. The boy, Eli Ashcroft, was placed in temporary protective care pending investigation. Alexandra lawyered up fast. Her money made sure no charges stuck. But she didn't forget the humiliation. 3 days later, Clay stood before the county review board, blindsided by a formal complaint. Mrs. Ashcroft sat at the end of the table in a tailored suit flanked by attorneys. "I'm requesting that K-9 Unit 241, Barlow, be permanently retired from field service," she said, "due to aggressive behavior toward my son." "That's a lie," Clay said. "The boy wouldn't leave his side." She smiled thinly. Children are impressionable. But the animal is unpredictable, dangerous, a liability to the department. Clay felt the trap snap shut. The board exchanged uneasy glances. One of them cleared his throat. "Sheriff, was there any documentation of the dog's behavior in that incident?" "Only that he stayed by the boy's side the whole time." "Any medical reports?" "Sealed," Clay said, "due to the Ashcroft family's request." A long pause. The vote was postponed. Investigation pending. But the damage was done. Barlow was pulled from field duty that afternoon. That night, Clay sat on his porch, a cold beer untouched beside him, while Barlow laid his feet staring into the woods. The crickets had gone quiet. The air hung heavy, like it was waiting for something. Clay scratched behind the dog's ear. "She's coming for you, Bud." Barlow blinked slowly. No fear, just watching. The next morning, someone left a message on Clay's desk. No name, just an envelope. Inside, a blurry photo. It showed the guest room, the bed, a man's boot print on the floor, beside the scratch boards. Clay's blood ran cold. "That's not my blood." Sheriff Clay Donahue drove back out to the Turner estate the next morning, though officially, the case had been concluded by the board standards. The storm had passed overnight, but the gravel road still glistened with leftover rain, curling around the lush estate like a moat protecting something rotten inside. Beside him, Barlow sat upright, no longer relegated to the rear cage. Clay figured if they were both being put out of pasture, they'd go down as partners, like always. Clay parked the cruiser by the garden hedges this time. Out of view, he'd left his badge back at the office. The photo in his pocket wasn't from evidence. It wasn't even on record. Someone was feeding him truth through the cracks. The guest house door was unlocked. He moved quietly, Barlow right behind him. The room was spotless now. The mattress changed, floor scrubbed. But even bleach can't hide soaked in blood, not completely. Barlow sniffed at the corner where the frame met the wall, then sat and let out a low wuff. Clay knelt, checked the board again. Something about the pattern of the scratches didn't sit right. They weren't from a dog. They were from fingers. Small ones. Scraping. Not attacking. Trying to hold on. He rose and checked the closet. Empty, except for one forgotten hanger. A tiny shred of plaid fabric clung to it. He recognized the pattern. The torn flannel from under the bed. Clay snapped a photo. Then he stepped outside and froze. Alexandra Ashcroft stood by the rose trellis, phone to her ear. Her eyes met his, and for just a second, her smile faltered. Then she clicked off the call. "I thought I made myself clear, Sheriff," she said coolly, walking toward him with feline grace. "This is private property. I'm not on duty. Even worse, trespassing and harassment? Shall I call your boss?" "You mean the new acting sheriff your lawyers helped install?" Her smile stayed, but her eyes darkened. "You're smarter than you look, but still predictable." Clay stepped closer. "What happened to Eli's father, really?" She didn't blink. "A fall. He drank. The autopsy confirmed it." Clay narrowed his eyes. "There was blood in the guest room, Alexandra." She shrugged. "Boys play rough. Sometimes they lie. And sometimes dogs get too close. That mutt of yours, he's a weapon. You know it. I'm just the only one willing to say it out loud." Clay clenched his jaw. "You're hiding something." She leaned in, her perfume sharp like citrus and poison. "Be very careful where you go digging, Sheriff. You're already obsolete, and so is your dog." Then she turned and walked back inside. Barlow stared after her, ears twitching. That afternoon, Clay went to see Eli. The boy was staying with a temporary foster family just outside of town. Nice folks. Older couple who didn't ask questions. He sat on the back porch in a hand-me-down hoodie, elephant clutched under one arm, knees drawn up. He didn't look up as Clay approached. Barlow padded up and sat beside him. The boy's face lit up for the first time in days. "You brought him?" he asked. Clay said gently, "You okay, kid?" The boy didn't answer, but after a pause, he leaned his head against Barlow's side. "He found me," Eli whispered. "In the house." "No." The boy's voice was distant. "In the trees." Clay froze. "What trees?" "Behind the house. By the creek. I was hiding there. Mama told me to be quiet." "When was this?" "Before you came. The night she said he fell." Clay's breath caught. "You mean your dad?" The boy nodded. "He didn't fall," Eli said. "He was yelling. She pushed him. I saw." Clay knelt. "Eli, you're doing really good. Can you tell me, was anyone else there when it happened?" The boy's lip quivered. "There was a man with a boot. He had mud on him. He came after. He told Mama to take care of it. Then I ran. I heard her call my name, but I didn't go back." Clay's heart pounded. "And Barlow found you?" The boy looked up. "He didn't bark. He just lay with me all night. Wouldn't let anyone near. That was why Barlow refused to leave the bed. He wasn't protecting the scene. He was protecting the witness." Clay squeezed Eli's shoulder. "Thank you. That helps a lot." Eli tugged Barlow's ear softly. "He's not just a dog, you know." "I know. He's my guardian angel." Clay returned to the station late. Everything inside felt off. His desk had been cleared. The envelope with the photo was gone. A new deputy, someone from the city, sat where Clay used to. Clay walked past without speaking and stepped into the archive room. Files were locked. He had no access. Everything sealed, even the Ashcroft report. Then his phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a text. "Meet me behind O'Henley S. Midnight. Come alone." He should have deleted it. Should have gone home. Instead, he whistled softly to Barlow. The dog rose instantly. Midnight. Behind O'Henley S. Tavern. A man stood under the flickering backlot lamp. Rain misted to the air again, barely visible. Clay parked, hand on his sidearm. Barlow stayed by his side. "You Clay?" the man asked. He wore a worn military jacket, face obscured by a baseball cap. "I am. I work security on the Ashcroft estate. Quit last year. Too many red flags." "You left the envelope." The man nodded. "There's more. She paid a guy to handle things after her husband accidentally fell. Name's Ward. Ex-con. Does cleanup work. State won't touch her. She's got judge connections." Clay's mind spun. Ward. The man Eli saw. "Yeah, there's a back house on the property. No one goes in there. I think that's where he stays. Like a ghost. They pay him in cash and silence." "Can you prove it?" "I got a flash drive. Hidden in my locker at the old gym. Cameras. Footage. Audio." "Why now?" The man looked at Barlow. "Because if that dog hadn't found the kid, we'd never know any of this. I owe him." Clay reached out for the drive. Before he could grab it, headlights flashed. 2 cars. No plates. The man's face drained. SH*T. "They tracked me." "Get in the truck." Clay barked. The man ran. Too late. A shot cracked the silence. He dropped like a sack. Barlow lunged. Clay fired once, hit a tire, and grabbed the drive from the man's hand. Barlow barked, then howled. The unmarked cars tore off. Clay knelt by the dying man, but he was already gone. He looked at the flash drive and whispered, "They won't get away with it." Later that night, Barlow wouldn't stop pacing. He knew what came next. The board would side with Alexandra. Barlow would be retired. Maybe worse. Clay stared at the screen. On the flash drive, footage of the guest house. One clip showed Ward dragging a body. Another showed Alexandra handing him a stack of money. There it was. The truth. But exposing it would come with a price. Clay looked at Barlow. You ready for one last run, partner? Barlow whined low, then sat waiting. He saved my life. They came for Barlow at sunrise. Official paperwork. Final decision from the review board. The signature at the bottom read, Alexandra Whitmore Ashcroft. Clay stood at the kennel gates, hands still stained from the night before. Barlow sat quietly beside him, posture tense but obedient. He didn't know he was being taken to die. Step aside, Sheriff, the transport officer muttered. Orders are orders. He's not going anywhere. Don't make this hard. Clay stared at the gray van waiting by the service road. 2 uniformed men stood behind it, holding leashes and a tranquilizer gun. Overkill, unless they were expecting resistance. And maybe they were, but Clay didn't flinch. You touch him, you better have a warrant, he said, and a damn good reason. The officer raised an envelope, signed and sealed. He's been ruled a liability. Barlow shifted, sensing tension. Clay slowly opened the gate himself. You want him, he said. Fine, but the moment you take that dog, you're complicit in covering up a murder. The officer paused. You want to stake your pension on Alexandra Ashcroft's word? Clay added, voice like gravel. Or mine, because I've got footage now. Evidence. Eyewitness testimony. The man swallowed. You bluffing? Clay didn't blink. Try me? Behind him, Barlow growled low, deep in his chest. The officer cursed under his breath, turned, and walked back to the van. We'll be back with lawyers this time. I'll be waiting, Clay said. That evening, the courthouse lights stayed on late. The small town didn't do spectacle. No press, no noise, just a judge, a quiet courtroom, and 3 people who'd spent too long in the dark. Alexandra Ashcroft sat poised at the defense table, black blazer, lips pressed tight. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. Eli sat beside Clay on the bench, dressed in a too large coat, holding his elephant again. He hadn't spoken much since the raid. Barlow sat at Clay's feet. The judge cleared his throat. Sheriff, you understand this proceeding isn't official yet? I do, Your Honor, Clay said, stepping forward. But what I'm about to present affects more than jurisdiction. It affects justice. He plugged in the flash drive. The screen flickered. Black and white security footage appeared. The courtroom watched in silence as Alexandra appeared on screen, handing an envelope to Ward. Later, the body, the cleanup, the whispering, her voice unmistakable. Make sure it's untraceable. Her attorney stood. Objection. This footage is unverified. It matches the timeline, matches the witness statement, Clay said. The witness being her son. Gasped from the gallery. Alexander turned toward Eli, eyes venomous. He's a child. He doesn't know what he saw. Eli stood. He didn't speak right away. But when he did, his voice was clear. You told me to lie, he said. You said no one would believe me. You said Daddy fell. But I saw you push him. And Ward, he grabbed me. I screamed. The room was dead silent. He would have killed me too, Eli whispered. But the dog, he found me. Barlow didn't move. Eli stepped closer to him. He didn't bark. He didn't bite. He just stayed until it was safe. He saved my life. Barlow leaned his head into the boy's small hands. A sniffle broke the silence. From the jury box, one of the alternates wiped her eye. The judge adjusted his glasses. That's quite enough for today. Alexandra stood. This is absurd. He's traumatized. None of this will hold up. The judge raised a hand. Mrs. Ashcroft, sit down. She did. Slowly. Her hands trembled. The judge turned to Clay. Sheriff, that footage, where's the original? Copied to the state's central evidence repository this morning, with audio transcripts and GPS data. It's locked in. He nodded. In that case, I'll make an emergency motion to stay the destruction order on K9 Unit 241 until further investigation. Alexandra's lawyer whispered urgently. Clay watched her face twist. Part pride, part rage, part crumbling loss. He didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. Later that week, Eli moved into temporary custody with a family out near Granger Hollow, a retired nurse and her husband who kept chickens and made homemade honey. Barlow visited often. Sometimes, when Clay drove out to check on the boy, he'd find them sitting together in the barn, Eli reading aloud, Barlow's head on his lap. "They want me to go to school," Eli said one afternoon, kicking at straw. "I don't want to." "Why not?" "Because people look at me like I'm broken." Clay knelt. "You're not broken. You're brave. And brave kids grow into strong men." Eli didn't respond. "Then can he stay with me?" Clay smiled sadly. "He's still on duty." "But what if he got a new partner?" "Who'd take me?" "I would," the boy said without hesitation. Clay ruffled his hair. "Maybe one day." Barlow let out a slow breath and closed his eyes. 1 month later, Alexander Ashcroft was indicted on obstruction, witness tampering, and conspiracy to cover up involuntary manslaughter. The state made a deal. Turn on Ward for a reduced sentence. Ward was caught in Kansas. The boot print matched his shoes. He didn't resist, didn't deny, just stared into the backwoods and said, "That damn dog." 6 months later, the county quietly reinstated Clay. They gave him a choice: retire with full pension or keep working with limited authority. He chose neither. He left, moved out to a stretch of land near Granger Hollow, built a small cabin, got chickens of his own, learned how to make coffee the right way. Barlow stayed with him, officially retired now. But every Sunday, a knock came at the cabin door. Eli stood there, always with a new book or a story or just silence. Barlow would run to greet him, tail wagging. Sometimes, Eli would fall asleep on the porch swing, head resting on the dog's back. Clay watched it happen a dozen times. And every time he wondered who saved who. The last time Eli visited before winter, he brought a wooden plaque. He'd carved it himself. It read, "Barlow, guardian, partner, angel." He handed it to Clay without a word. Clay didn't speak either, just set it on the wall beside the fireplace. Barlow curled up on the rug. The fire crackled quietly. Outside, the wind rattled the trees. But inside that little cabin, everything felt still, safe, whole again.